People have not ever totally neglected Wyland Park. One of the things that happened when the collaborators started to put together their programs is that they looked at the history of the area, and what they found was that there were several attempts in the past, many attempts in the past, to ameliorate poverty, to get rid of the causes of poverty, because one of the things that happens is there were two large factories here, for example. Once those factories closed, people lost the opportunity for employment, and when you lose employment, then you lose the opportunity to maintain your housing, to maintain your families, you know, and a lot. It begins a downslide. This happened in many communities all over the nation, so it's not a news story. But what happens to the community is there becomes a sense of defeatism. You know, people come and they say, we're going to do this and we're going to improve things, and they kind of throw money at it, and they put somebody in an office, and nothing really happens. It's just, they don't really engage the community. They were actually, in the early part of these programs, they actually got a knock on my door, and somebody wanted to interview me about environmental impacts. You know, it just was simply, you know, how dirty is the alley? Well, in fact, it's very dirty. You know, and what could be done to improve that alley? Well, you could have more pickups, or you could put out, you know, more trash bins. Simple solutions, but nobody ever asked before.
Middle-class systems will create programs, create policy, make all kinds of decisions, and never ask a poor person if it's the right thing, if it's going to work or be helpful, or any of those issues. So it was in that process that we began to share with the wider community the gift of having low-income persons at the table.
Okay, we know that's the reality. So now what can we do in very incremental ways to have an impact on that experience for somebody? So definitely more an applied focus than a policy focus.
I realized that we knew a lot, but that we really weren't applying our knowledge in the kind of fashion that would put together these solutions that will really make a difference.
Whatever the problem is, if you want to solve the problem, you really need to understand the causes of the problem, and what the people who are impacted by the problem, how do they feel?
We're getting what I think is a personal snapshot of what they're experiencing, whether it be health, safety, issues surrounding neighborhood interaction, neighborhood involvement. It gets a very personal response when you're asking people particular questions that are on the interview.
My mom did it all by herself, and she had no help. It was kind of hard.
Could have been somebody's son, and I took his heart when I pulled out that gun. Rum-pa-pa-pum, rum-pa-pa.
And I think that's really the difference here with the collaborative, is the outreach effort, the genuine effort to reach and invite people to come here.
The Getting Ahead classes are some of the most important work that we've done, because it allows persons in poverty to begin to do their own self-exploration. And it's not us teaching them, it's their own exploration of their own choices and issues. And so it's a self-discovery.
The thing that Getting Ahead does is it shows the people that they deal with that, you know, you have power
and it helps them empower themselves.
With those programs, there are bootlaces that you can grab a hold of and pull yourself up. I've listened to the testimonies of some of the young people who are involved in these programs, the Moms-to-Be, the Getting Ahead program, and talk, it'll bring you to tears to hear them talk about how these programs have literally changed their lives, primarily by changing their perspective about who they are, one, and secondly, about who they can become, because it's a world very different than the world that they have experienced their entire life.
The Getting Ahead program helped me because I guess I didn't know I was in poverty. I just didn't. I knew I was poor, but I didn't look at it as all poverty. I looked at poverty as like third world countries. You know what I mean? So I was just like, no, I'm good. I went to seminars, I joined breastfeeding network clubs. It was just amazing. To this day, I still run a breastfeeding network program with my lactation consultant.
We had a time where we had Getting Ahead graduates and then folks throughout the community who had been trained in bridges, and there was a desire to match folks up. So the volunteers from the community were called allies, and the Getting Ahead graduates were called circle leaders.
Michael and Jean went actually to the dealership with me on a Saturday. And they helped me weigh all my options. They didn't give me like ultimatums, or they didn't judge me. They exactly broke down in layman's terms what the dealer was trying to say to me and told me, well, here are your options and this is what you need to choose from.
I think one of the things that's been most important too is that you're both open people. And you had your initial ideas of this is how this might work, but you were always open to the idea that there was something else and that there was something different and that might be okay.
That helped us explain some of the work-life balance issues that were being brought into work. Why people were showing up late because they had transportation issues, why people were at work but not really productive because they were worried about their teenage daughter at home or some of the other issues. And also looking at, missing training opportunities and advancement opportunities because we didn't really understand the demographics of our workforce.
You've been real quiet, darling. Anything in your heart you need to put out there?
No, I really enjoyed this. We need to do this more.
Yeah.
At least we're getting to know what is needed and what we all can do to help.
What they do is, after we evaluate everything and think we've got it better, we may come back and say, okay, starting October 1, here's what we're going to do for the next 2 months. And to see if it works.
Yeah.
We may not be spot on everything.
Right.
So we may do it for 2 months and then say, okay, we're going to sit back and evaluate. Because sometimes these long-standing policies is what gets us in trouble. Not always in trouble, but in the gray area.
Right.
We've been interviewing young black men in the neighborhood and figuring out, talking to them about their interests, their experience in the neighborhood and what they would like to see as far as like programming and events.
Young people are going to inherit their communities. And it's important that they're very invested in the development of their neighborhood and the development of initiatives or policies or programs, that we really truly listen to them and take what they have to say to heart.
The ones who are going to be most impacted and affected are the youth, because you guys are the future.
I think about the kids only though, you know what I'm saying, because eventually they gonna grow up and looking at our decisions, you know what I'm saying?
We're, United Way has made a choice to head up the Youth Development Task Force. We were asked, by the collaborative members, and we, definitely wanted to, take on that opportunity. Part of the issue is that we just didn't have a lot of information about what young people are thinking about, and particularly African American males. We have had several community conversations with adults who are concerned about what's happening for young people in the neighborhood. We've had several conversations with some groups of young people, but really young African American males, it was that perspective was absent. So when we talk about accessibility, there's a lot of different thinkers around the table, the decision-making table, funders, community residents, but these were issues that they just, may know about, but don't really have the first-hand knowledge about. And so this was an opportunity to build that body of knowledge, and that's going to feed into our development of kind of transformative initiatives or recommendations to support improved youth outcomes in the neighborhood.
There is a new hope, new aspirations that they achieve simply by participating in programs where they're not judged, where people do not look down on them, and people give them the idea that, yes, they can achieve a middle-class lifestyle, which is very different than a poverty lifestyle. It's very different than a poverty mentality, which is a mentality of failure. It's a mentality of defeat.
If we can track that, if we can bring these smart researchers who ask good questions to pay attention to how we do it and if it works, then you have a scalable model. Then you can do something in another neighborhood, and you can do it in another state or maybe another country. So I believe that that's the objective, is to have an impact, be able to track what works, and then do it again.
Hey!